Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. We have a very large 7-inch by 14-inch composition here, and it's going to involve the vellum technique where we are stamping on both the front side and the back side of the vellum, which would be two sides, and then we'll be placing it on top of another piece of 7-inch by 14-inch. A piece of semi-gloss cardstock, white cardstock. So a pretty large piece. I would say pretty involved in terms of the layering. The technique isn't really, anything complicated or anything like that, but it does involve a little bit of planning. Okay, so I've stamped these two images out using my hybrid ink on the vellum. You can use a Brilliance black as well, but the hybrid worked really well and it gave me a nice deep and dark impression using my Art Foamies versions of the stamps. You can do something like this with the rubber too. I just felt like using my larger ones because this is just such a large piece. Okay, so the only planning thing that I kind of messed up on a couple times is when I stamp this out down here. This is going to go over the top of it, but you can see where this tree almost perfectly overlaps that one. I wanted it off center like that, okay? And then I did it again right over here, and it's like, did that right there. And then this tree right here is overlapping perfectly. So I don't know, I had to get my spacing down right. I finally got around to just placing this down, and I just kind of took my stamp and I thought, okay, that's where it goes. And I flick this off like that, and I just made my impression. So that got it, I don't know, what that did the trick. I don't know. I was being lazy, I guess, and just kind of stamping and hoping it would come out. Hello, Candy, how are you? All right, so we have our layout like this. The trees on the front of the vellum, of course, are going to be the ones that represent the trees that are the closest to us, or just the non-obstructed ones. And then I wanted a thicker forest. If we're just doing this on a plain piece of paper, you can come up with some really good results, but unless you're masking these off and stamping background ones, you won't get quite the depth of something like this. So that's the purpose of doing it this way. It's just a fun way to do it. I haven't done something this large though, so it's going to be, something. If I need to see if I can lay this down on here with some spray adhesive and get it nice and smoothly applied. Sometimes there gets to be air bubbles in here with this type of technique. So let's see what we can do. Okay, so I've got these two stamped out, and I heat set them because the hybrid ink requires a little bit of heat setting. So let's see if I can't get this kind of organized and going nice and smoothly. You just have to keep in mind which side of the vellum you've stamped on, because it can look very similar sometimes. If you don't remember, the vellum it's translucent, but it's reasonably clear when you're stamping some fairly dark imagery on top. Okay, so now to make these birch trees opaque, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to block them out. My paint of choice is the Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White. It really dries fast and it's very opaque. Thus the Bleed Proof White, it's really opaque. So it's often the paint of calligraphers doing that white lettering on dark or black paper. Okay, so let's see here. You don't need to get too thick of a coating either. So just standard, regular brush like this. And what you do is you just, remember this is on the back side of the birch, or the back side of the vellum impressions, okay? And you just paint them in like so. And it's really easy to, because again, the vellum is really clear, so I can see where my impression is on the front, and you'll get that nice kind of white birch appearance over darker or multiple objects stamped behind them. On this vellum here, what you'll find as a little aside here is when you get enough of this paint laid down, it kind of makes the vellum buckle a little bit. Hello, Bonnie. Good to see you both. If anyone else is watching, hello to you. Thanks for checking out the stream. Live stream, that is. I don't know exactly what this composition is going to be structured as. I'm just doing these initial trees here first. I was thinking about putting maybe one of the new paths going down the middle here, but we'll see. I've been wanting to do a vellum piece for a while, just because I haven't done this technique for a while. And because I didn't know when I would get around to it again, I thought, let's just go big. I don't remember what the largest vellum piece I've done was, or if this can even be done, mainly in the merger of the vellum to that background paper that we're going to be using. Usually it's the smaller pieces are a lot easier to handle because there's not so much area to adhere and to bond. So the larger area that you have when you're merging the vellum to the background paper, there's ripples sometimes and or air bubbles that get trapped in between the two surfaces. So we'll see how this goes here. I hope it goes smoothly, of course. I don't have to fiddle around, getting like some locked in trapped air bubbles out, which usually involves me kind of lancing it like a, I don't know, little growth on the thing and extracting the air, which is not really any big deal, but it's always better if you don't have to do that because it would represent the surface is just having a better seal, closer seal. It's one of those moments in stamping where it's like I'm thinking, all right, I have to kind of stay within the lines reasonably well here. I don't want to go out of it too much, If you do, then you can just, I don't know, put some leaves or something in front of it, but... the consistency that you want with the Dr. Martens is, it's like a thin syrup or something. So you might have to add a little bit of water. I wasn't going to put another layer or do too much stamping on the back of the vellum, but I think I am going to. Just when I was looking at it earlier, I thought, would 2 surfaces be enough? And I thought, let's just go for the 3. We're doing this really big piece of paper here, so. All right, so this is what that looks like right there, but of course, on the front of the vellum, you have all the details of the tree because it's stamped on the front side of the vellum and we've just blacked out the back side. So again, when we're doing something like this, we don't have to do any type of masking again. So if you're doing like a deep layered forest with, if you're doing it with dark trunks, you don't need to worry about those because you can just stamp the darker trees over the front of the background trees and it doesn't matter, like the pine ones. But if we're talking about these lighter toned surfaces like that, you know, this is a really good way to do it. And to me, it's just easier than doing like a liquid frisk or something like that, which is this resist thing that you paint on all those things and you stamp right over the top of it, then you take off the frisk, you know. That's not something that I'm really interested in doing. So again, so I have something like this, and you can put that right over the top of it, and you don't have those trees in the background showing through here. Okay, I don't want to set this down right flush with that because that some of that white paint still might be a little bit moist right now. Okay, so now that is laid down. Okay, now I have this tree in back of this one, okay? I don't want to go with another layer in here, in between this one and that one. It's going to get too busy. So I do want some other trees over here and over on this side, okay? So let me get my bearings with that. Or, well, I don't really even need to. What I'll do is I'll go... I've done 3 of those larger birch trees. This image right here, used 3 times. I'm going to use this one now. This one has a little bit of a arcing trunk to it. And we'll put this right over on the back of the vellum, okay? Now, sometimes what happens is this ink soaks through that white a little bit. You know what I mean? So I'll just have to compensate for that a little bit of, you know, if it does or when it does. And I'll get some of that whited out in the front side of the vellum so I can use some of this white paint on the front side of the trunk too, and it'll just blend in just fine. Or I can do that with acrylic paint pens. All right. All right, that being said, I guess it wouldn't hurt to heat set this a little bit. I could go over this too with a little bit more white paint, and I could probably spray seal it so it's a little bit less, you know, permeable, is that a word? I could probably spray it with a workable fixative, and that'll seal that off a little bit, but I'm not going to take the time to do that. Okay. So let's try to get this where it's kind of right in the back of that tree. That set of 3 trunks. Do that. I probably should make a quicker impression too with this one. All right, so see that's like right back there. Yeah, I can see it going through the front of that right there. So I'm just going to put some white where it did go through that a little bit. So that tree's in the back right there. And I think I'm put another one over here, but I'll do it on this, I think. Yeah. So it's, you got to keep track of all these little layers everywhere. And usually, you know, we're not doing this on like such a gigantic piece right here, so we wouldn't have like so many different layers, but the scale of this allows for that. Did I say hello to Linda? It's hard to tell when that's dry on this with this vellum here. So the vellum I'm using is this one right here. So 11 by 14. I think that's a pretty standard size with vellum. It's 8.5 by 11, and the next size is 11 by 14. So I just kept the length of that one. Okay, now here's the thing. So we've added this extra tree in the background right there, and that's going to go over this background paper right here. So what you do is you just go in, and now you block out those trees right here. All right, so bear with me here for this whole video, for the whole stream, actually. Any live stream, bear with me. I guess you could just, in theory, you can just keep putting layer over layer over layer on this, this vellum. One time I did do an experiment where I did 2 layers of vellum over the top of one piece of paper, and that didn't work at all. That second layer of vellum that I was trying to adhere to the other piece over the cardstock, whatever it was. I don't know if it was glossy or semi-gloss. It just didn't. That vellum over vellum, it was just like there was so many air bubbles, and it was a smaller piece too. But I had to really extract those air bubbles a lot. Okay, so there you have it right there. So there's 2 layers of birches right in here. And again, some of that is showing right through here. So we'll just be doing, stuff like this. We'll just, paint that out with some additional paint. Maybe I'll do that right now on this front side. And, whether it's painted on the back or the front, because it's vellum, it doesn't really matter too much. So you can get rid of that line going right through there really fast. So, okay, but anyways, this is what this is going to be looking like that. So you can see that you can really get a lot of depth in there. And then we'll put, some extra, some additional birch trees in the back there. I don't want to make it so cluttered, but we want to have some decent numbers of layers in there. Let me get this painting done right now while I'm at it. It'll just take me I don't know, extra 30 seconds to get this one done. Okay, this one's going through right in here. And again, the acrylic white paint pen too would do this too, but the Dr. Martin's is probably a little bit more opaque for that. It makes quick work of it. All right, so that is, I think I got it all. Yeah. It is obscure enough because we're going to put additional layers of imagery over the top of this too, and on the back. Okay, so here's one of the things about this. I got all smudgy in here with all this wet ink. So I might put something right over. I'm trying to think if I want to go on the front or the back of this, or neither. Or on this one. That's the thing about it. It's like, what surface do you want to put this on? Do you want to put it on surface number 1, 2, or 3? To get those little smudgies out. Which doesn't really matter too much as long as you have something in here, but I just don't want that thing like in this one clear area. So let's see here. Maybe something like that. Let's do that. All right, let's do that on the front of this here. I think there's a better chance of me kind of aligning it somewhat if I do it on the front here, because I can see it right there. I think a die cutting machine might work. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm going to run this branch right through that smudge right there. Dye-based inks too, by the way, on this vellum, I couldn't get a really good impression of it. I hadn't done this for a while, so I kind of forgot about certain things. And with the art foamies too, maybe a little bit of a thicker ink might be better too. I made an impression with the art foamies using my dye-based ink. Maybe I needed to re-ink it, but it came out quite a bit lighter on just the cardstock. Okay, there goes my smudge. My smudge is obscured there. And it looks pretty good with that layout like that, huh? Now watch me just touch this and get that all smudged too. Let me move this out of the way too. It's probably coming from off this paper. Hello, Caroline. Hello, Sheila. I think it's dry. All right. Sorry, folks. Now, see, if I put this one on that paper right there, I wouldn't have to block it out, okay? But I don't, if I stamped it down here, then I put that vellum over the top of it, I don't know if I would have hit that smudgy area, so I just wanted to make sure about that one. All right, more paint. The only one... So if you're doing like vellum trees with birch trees with vellum all the time, you're probably going through a lot of this Dr. Martens. The only, and you start to get close to kind of the amount of Dr. Martens that probably like Jeannie Siegel uses. She doesn't do birch trees and vellum, but she always does these super expressionistic. Like sky forms and things like that, or her snow pieces especially. Hello, Cynthia. How are you? 8.5 by 14 vellum is too opaque to use for this. Oh, really? So when you put it over something, it's just what is the weight of that? It must be like a really super thick vellum then, right? Mine is a 55-pound vellum. All right, so see how that's going like that. When he's setting this vellum here, for some reason in my mind, I thought it buckled more. Or does it buckle more when it's like a smaller piece because it's just, so small and there's, I don't know, higher percentage of moisture to surface area or something like that? I don't know. It seems like it would still buckle, in this like smaller area right here, but I don't know. Maybe temperature plays a part in I don't know, whatever, how it's reacting to moisture and heat right now or something. Because this is like fairly flat right now. I don't know. I expected with all this paint and water on it, and then heat setting like that, I thought it would, I don't know, I thought it would ripple. I mean, it's still a little ripple, like, you know, you can see it like this, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be. Okay. Not the greatest live stream technique here with all the starting and stopping and heat setting and aligning. But it's a fun technique. Look at that. Even white against like white paper looks kind of interesting. You know, just that tiny variation in white between the, you know, this paper and this vellum is kind of interesting. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do maybe like a pathway right here or something, I think. And then we'll align our additional trees like in the background right up here. We'll put them like farther back in the distance. And then we'll have our layout here. Finally. Okay, let me figure this out here. Okay, let's see. Let's go like that. Let me see if one of the pathways will work in here. Something like this. This one's a curved one. Let's do this right here. The thing that's going through in my mind right now is, okay, because this is vellum too, see this pathway is going like this. It's like an S-curve this way, okay? If I want that to end up with that S-curve going this way, I can stamp it on the back of this vellum like that, right? But with rubber stamping, if you're not working on vellum, then you're stuck with it directionally, so it has to go this way. If you're just stamping on just like a white piece of paper or cardstock. So with the vellum, I have a little bit of an extra choice. And I think I want it going like this. I want it coming in like this. So I'd place it on the back of the vellum like that. All right, let's try that. I haven't done this in a while, so it's like I'm not real like 100% on some of the things here. I mean, it just, you know, it's a little difference, you know. It's not like, oh my god, I chose the wrong way. It completely ruined the scene or something like that. But I'm thinking about things like coloring too, you know. Because sometimes you color the front of the vellum and sometimes you color the back of it, or both, you know. This technique really gives you a lot of options. Which sometimes it's not good to have because it just kind of slows down the process, the creative process, if you're just kind of thinking about little things like that too much and not just, you know, spending all your time on, you know, the whatever, coloring and lighting and things like that. Rubbing alcohol will take, oh, yeah, that might have taken out those little smudges there. But the thing about the hybrid ink, I'm not sure if it would have taken out that water-based element out of it. Maybe it would. Is the ink pad dye-based? Hybrid, Caroline. So this one right here, I normally use my Brilliance on there. on this paper, which is all water-based and dries really fast and everything like that, and gives me really good impressions. But I thought I want to try I thought I wanted to try the hybrid ink this time around just to see how that would work. So I'm kind of messing around with some different things on this one, going larger just to, I don't know, so I can learn something that I haven't learned, that I might not know. Okay, so that's that pathway like that. Okay, and it'll be on the back of that, and then we'll fill in all this extra area in here. One of the things about this ink, when it's drying on here, I'm pretty convinced that it is drying like 10%, I don't know, 5 to 10% lighter than what it looks like freshly applied. So keep that in mind. I don't know if it affects anything, but I think it could potentially. All right, so that is like that. And I want some additional trees. Let's see how this is going to look. Let me make sure that's dry there. Okay, so this is how this is going down right here. And let's see. I want some additional trees, maybe like right over, I don't know, it's going to start getting pretty busy in here. Let's go, I think let's go right here. Like this. Maybe I need to go like really high with these up here. So like an inch higher than the path. Okay. All right, I think let's go like really high up here. Okay. Like this. I don't want this too cluttered down in the lower section. But again, I mean, the whole purpose of doing this is to go for depth. So, okay, let's see here. All right, that's the middle. I'm going to use my finger right here. That's where those smudges are coming from. Where did I get that? Oh, I just totally smudged up my paper again in that lower section. All right. Let me use the brilliance here. Just because it'll dry nice and fast. Okay, let's go here. And careful not to touch down like that. Okay, there, and it's right about here. Let's do this. Now let's go about a little bit higher like that. Okay, so I'm going to put my finger right there, and we'll go about like right there. So that's about midway. So it's really a scientific placement of stamps. Don't be off by like even like a ½ millimeter is what I'm saying. I'm joking, folks. But okay, let's see here. Let's go like this. Now I'm stamping over this foreground one, but if I do, I am, but I'll just white it out with some the paint again, like we do on the vellum here. All right, so hopefully that gets us kind of right in the sweet spot, like right in there. And I'll just leave this other part alone right over here. Okay, so heat set, and then we'll get this moving here. Hello, Patty. 8.5 by 17. That's interesting. That's an interesting size there. I'm surprised it's not 11 by 17. Okay, here we go, right here. And that is our layering right there. So a pretty thick layered forest right in here, okay? And we need to lay down our foundation in there, and then we'll start adding in those different colored elements in here. So let me take care of this. See this, where this birch tree, background tree, overlap that front one? I'll just take out a few of those lines. I don't know if I really need to, because it's going to get pretty thickly layered right in this area, I would think, with that overhanging foliage coming down, but we'll just take care of some of that and get the worst part of that overlap obscured a little bit, like so. Okay. And I think that'll do it with the Dr. Martens right there. So see, this tree now is in front of that background birch tree like that. All right, so let's add in, look at that big smudge there. I think I'm going to add in my sedge filler stamp all around here. I just need to kind of avoid this little area right here. I'm going to add this right here. Like that. And then I'll just avoid this little area in here with that texture. I'm gonna lay it down on this just because this dries a little bit slower, so it's a little bit smudgier, I think, on the vellum. All right, so on here too, let's go with, I'll use my Brilliance on here, or should I go with the dye-based ink? Let's go with the dye-based ink. That's the thinnest and fastest drying. Okay, so let's see. Let's do... You can really put this sedge filler too on different levels too if you wanted to. In other words, you can lay some down on here, on the back of the vellum, and on the front of it, you know. But let's do that, okay? And then add in this. I don't know, I don't want to go look for it right now, but the larger grass texture here in the foreground would have been a little bit better. It would have given me a little bit more scale. But let's just keep this really simple at this point in time. As far as the rest of these techniques go, we already spent enough time kind of doing all those layers with the vellum. Okay, and let's go like that. $11 by 17, that's a good size there. That's like a tabloid size, you know, pack of vellum there. Okay, like this. And let's see, that texturing in there. It's a little bit light there. I need to go a little bit heavier right there. Or I missed it, I guess. Right here. There we go. I want to go fairly dark because it's coming out of that pathway image. Okay, and let's take a look. I'm smudgy everywhere on here, but once we get all this stuff layered in, I don't think it's going to matter too much. All right, so that's the way that goes. That pathway looks a little bit, it's like too heavy in there. but we'll add in all of our shading elements. We'll get that all blended out, and we'll bring in some lighting into there too, so we don't need to really worry about that. Okay, so here's the thing about using Vellum 2. I can add in something in front of here if I wanted to, like a deer or something like that. And if that's going to obscure the deer or whatever subject would be in there, then I can take these trees right here and like lay down some white pigment ink over them and like push them back into the distance in terms of visually, in terms of light and shadow too, which is a nice kind of option. And then normally it would be kind of hard to stamp over the top of that with like a dye-based ink or something like that without that pigment ink affecting it. But I can just stamp it right on top of this vellum right here, and it's not going to be affected by all the media that's been caked on in the background here either. So some nice little kind of perks from this, you know, should you choose to employ it. Employ the technique. All right, here. All right, so let's start adding in some of those colors. So, okay, so what I want to do is I want to add in a bunch of, I was thinking about some different colors. Let's see, I brought up some different photographs here on whatever, Google or whatever. And I'm looking at some pictures of some birch trees. I want the multiple toned colors, okay? It might not be a version of like birch trees in like a really specific time of year. I do want some greens and yellows and maybe some oranges and reds in here, like a combination of all of that. So let's go with, I'm trying to think of the sequencing here. Let's go with, let's go with yellows and ochres, I think, in terms of the foliage. No, maybe green. Let's do that here. I'll try to get some different tones in this leaf stamp. You can use whatever foliage you want to. And I'll put this on the base here. In my mind, I was thinking, do I stamp it on the back of this Vellum? I need to get some other colors of brilliance ink, and I would put that on this Vellum right here. But we'll focus on a lot of the colors right back in here, I think. So let's try this out here. Let's see if I have this brilliant yellow in a stampable pad. A lot of my pads are my dye-based pads are starting to really disintegrate now at this point in time. They're really old. Yeah, this one's like depressed. It's fine for using on certain. It's fine for a lot of my pads are fine for just inking up by putting a sponge or a paper towel like I do and just taking that color on here, but they're not flat enough to make impressions from anymore. So it might be time to do some ink pad shopping. Let me see some of these other ones. Okay, this one's a terracotta. That'll be a good one. All right, let me just get a little bit of that down. I want this more kind of, I don't want it too orangish. I want it more like golden with some hints of orange. So I just tap down a little bit like that. And then we're just blending it with the 1500 series Marvy brush marker. The ultimate, some of the ultimate pens for doing that watercolor style of technique on your stamps for those impressions. Let's just try it just straight yellow here for a little bit of variation. I thought I was getting more variation there. I thought I went just a little bit less orange, but maybe it was all spread around in there. Let's go a little bit slightly darker on the outside, I think, and lighter in the middle. Okay, let's go with this over here. This is kind of, I'm using this as kind of my framing device. I thought about going for some other tones in the background, but I thought, maybe I'll just go with, I'll use more imagery to do that, but we'll see. Maybe it'll look a little bit too busy. So let's, I don't know. We'll try to get our bearings here. All right, let's see this one here. I'm getting a little bit too orangish. Okay. This. Second impression. Yeah, let's keep it. Let's give it more ink. Okay. So that's that. That's one tone of it. But let's go a little bit, let's add in a little bit of an extra hue in here. Let's clean this off. Let's go with more of like a greenish tinge, green yellow. Okay. I think there was a ton of ink on the sides of my stamp. So it's coming out a little bit darker. Okay, here's some little bit green. I think all of my pads started going bad at the same time or something. It's like one of those things when like all the household appliances seem to be aging out and breaking down at the same time. Our stamping appliances. All right, there we go, like that. A little bit more yellowish. By the way, nah, I want to heat set this before I lay that vellum on top of here. Okay, so I'm going to have this coming up from below as well, but let me see, do I add in my color first? I think I should do the impressions first, probably. Let's do this right here. I can't think of 3 dimensions like this. Well, it's 2-dimensional parts, but it's 3 layers. It's like Star Trek 3-dimensional chess. Okay, It's looking better like that. More layered. Let's come down like this too. I'm kind of doing this kind of with the plans too. See, it's a little bit darker up high, and then it's a little bit lighter below because I want to have this light coming into it. So I'm going a little bit lower where with these lighter impressions where that the airy kind of mist is going to be depicted in here. Okay, so it's like light is going to be coming kind of from like this area in here, a little bit more central like that. Let's lay it down something like this too. That's what it's, that's my concept, at least right now. We'll see what happens by the time I kind of get around to it, though. All right. Using those Marvy pens like that are really yield some super juicy impressions. We definitely lost some intensity of the wet ink there, but this is going to also be behind everything, so front and back. Okay, so this is looking like this, how that's going to be, and then we'll have some other impressions on the front of this too. So let's go to, and it's going to be more see-through too once you get those adhered in there. So it's a little bit more translucent like this, but again, once bonded, it becomes a little bit more see-through. Okay, so let's get to this lower area in here. I think that's going to be the fastest thing. Let's use some of these tones like this. This is a lot of area. You can just do it with all colored pencils too if you want to, or use whatever, but I think some dye-based inks is going to will give us the fastest amount of coverage in here for at least a base coat of ink. And let me see if I have some sort of, let's go with a little bit of a peach Bellini too. Which isn't green, but it'll give us a nice warm base on here. And it'll give us a little bit more of this earthier kind of warm tone. I always mention these kind of base layers like this. You can use, the Distress Inks ones are really good. And the ones I always mention are Antique Linen and Old Paper as two that would be really excellent base layer colors. I've just been using up some of my peach Bellini. I ran out of my Antique Linen a while ago, but it's like I've got a ton of some of these inks, and I might as well use them up. But it's just something like a warm and very light base layer color. Okay, nothing too like bright. You can have rich, of course, but just something like a really light tone like this is a really good foundation. And it just makes things go so much faster too when you lay down these kind of base layer colors like this, or some base layer color. And I'm just kind of retaining some lighter areas in here. This is where that pathway is going to go, so I want a little bit in there. And then I'll alter that, when I get around to it too, from the front side of the vellum. Or I could do it from the back side of the vellum too. All right, so that was Peach Bellini. Just stay with that same, if you're using a sponge or whatever, you can use that. Actually, that looks pretty good. Remember when I was saying about this kind of tone up in here? I think I'm going to use some of that up there in that sky too. Let me see, I'm going to apply some of this, wipe some of this off first, just so it's not so thick. And let's just get a little bit of this kind of haze up here in the sky like this. I won't go down too far with it. I'll just kind of give it a little bit of a vignette on the perimeter, I think, just to contain this really large composition a little bit. Does anyone live anywhere where there's native birch trees around, or I don't know. I guess it doesn't have to be native. You can have it like landscape too. I hadn't really even thought about birch trees before, but when I did my first trip, I think it's when I took my first trip out to Maine. Like more than one person asked me, "Hey, you can make some like a birch tree." And then I did. Like 15 years later. Okay. Yeah, should I use this? There's a lot of Peach Bellini in this now. Let's see. Let's take some of this green here. But the thing is, though, about the birch trees, though, the thing that always kind of worried me about doing something with a light bark, light trunk bark image is that I was used to overlapping things and being able to put things, stamping things in the background. You stamp this dark trunk out right over the top of it, and you don't have to do any masking. So I didn't want to have to do any of that masking or anything like that with things like white trunks. But I did come out with it, but I didn't. And people, they don't necessarily all stamp like me. They might stamp it out in color, so you don't have to do any masking around those birch trees. But I wasn't using things like colored pencils at the time where I can just kind of work around things very easily. It was all stuff with the tonal applicator or the color box stylus tool. I don't know, there were those types of things. So I didn't use my own birch tree stamps very much. And for me, I started using it a lot more when I don't know, started doing this vellum technique here. It's like, I don't have to mask off, to get a deeper layered forest or anything like that. And that really appealed to me. Okay, so just going on here with the warm light green here. I'm not really taking my time to work around these birch trees because if I want those to be white, I'll just slap some white paint over the top of it. And also, it's not the top layer. The top layer is going to be the birch trees on the vellum right over the top of that, so it kind of obscures those background trees a little bit anyway, so it's just not worth the time to really work around these trees too much, Okay, so that's that. It's kind of brightening it up a lot. And again, this is going to look like this in here. Okay, so it's going to start to warm it up. Shadows and things like that, like more detailed shadows being cast by the trunks, that'll be done on top of the vellum with the colored pencils. That's going to be the easiest way to do it. I mean, you could put it down here too, but it's just so much easier on the vellum up top, on that top layer. Is the peach a dye-based? Yeah, that's a good question, Cecile. Yeah, all of these inks that I'm laying on right now are dye-based. Okay. Yeah, the paper is going to be adhered with this. The vellum to paper. Okay. And now, I've seen people adhere vellum to paper by taking your craft glue like this, putting it on a little palette, and I think they diluted it a little bit, and then they used a brush to adhere it. But I'd really recommend getting a can of this stuff, just for general card making, if you're, adhering anything of decent size to, your cards. When I do my framing or when I do my horizon reflection card things, I'm adhering 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 or 4 by 6 pieces and doing them double layering them twice, with a double mat and things like that, or adhering them into those card bases, and just a real thin layer. You don't want to put a real thick layer of this. It's like a little spray, but you can get, I don't know, I can get like 100, probably, maybe more, applications of that out of just one can. And I think it's really good with the vellum too, because it gives you a nice thin, even coat. When you spray this thing, don't go like spray and then move. What you do is, like, as I'm spraying this, it's going to be something like, make sure you're spraying the correct side of the vellum too. Okay, so on this right here, actually I don't spray the vellum. I'm going to spray this because it's stiffer. So you start off the card and then you just kind of go on, or you can just kind of hit it with bursts from distance, if you miss some spots, but you kind of want to keep this moving a little bit, and give it a few bursts. Just make sure you get the edges really good and, a pretty decent amount in the interior. Not normally, like, we're not working with this large, so it's like a little 4 by 6 or something like that, where it's just like, it's like a 3-second burst, or it's not even that, it's like 2-second burst of that. Or, like I said, you just kind of hit it from distance a little bit. Just go, don't press and hold on this, otherwise you're gonna be wasting, adhesive, and it'll build up, like a blob of glue. But standard, it's just your standard, spray painting, whatever technique. Keep it moving, shoot it from a little bit of a distance. It's a little bit different than paint, of course, because it's a little bit thicker, but, it's not, it's the same technique, though. Oh, and with the spray adhesive, too, after you spray, it's sticky, so it builds up right here. So every time I spray it every time, I'm spraying in a little bit of a box, so I just take this, and on the edge of the box, I just do this little scrape like that, just to get that glue off of that very tip right there. And sometimes you might have to peel it off too, but do something like that. Now, if I'm just not going to be using that glue or thicker sprays like that in a while, you're supposed to kind of take this and you turn it upside down, and then you spray it so you get all of that adhesive out of the thing, and it blows out clean like that. But then I don't like doing that too much, because then I'm using all that adhesive in there, and I'm using it often enough where I really don't have to worry about that too much. But yeah, it's thick, so it could, and it's an adhesive, so it can clog in that tip right there. So you can just take off the tip too, and you can clean it out somehow. They also sell extra tips too, just in general, for your spray cans too. Just generic, tips. Hey, the Hodgkins are there. Yeah, well, that's where I heard about the birch trees. I think Linda might have been one of those that asked me about that. And then, like I said, and then I made one, like, 15 years after you asked me. Or inquired, yeah. That's when I looked into them, though. Pre-internet, too, so it's like, okay, what are birch trees, I need to get some material and take a look at and see what these what the patterns on those birch trees are. I don't have birch trees out this way. They kind of remind me of aspen, bark though too. So I've used these birch trees as like, aspens. Now anyone that, lives in those areas and, they know a lot about trees, you know what I mean? And I not pass the test, but to me it's like close enough. I just use like all yellow beyond, or I don't know. And then I use my other aspen trees in the background, but use the birch trees trunks for the foreground, like that. All right, so that's what that's looking like now. Okay, let's see how that's looking. What I'm looking at right now is I'm just looking to see if it's dark enough for this vellum to be adhered over the top of that. Just because it's just going to be easier for me to get this foundation of color down before I start doing my colored pencil work in here. But I think it's pretty much ready to go. So that being said, I still don't know what I'm going to put right in here. And if I should kind of mute those trees out a little bit. Let's just do that right now, just in case I want to do something with it, because once these things are adhered down, I can't do anything about those trees right in the background there. So what I'm going to do is I'll take some white pigment ink like this. We'll take a white acrylic paint pen. Now, again, I can add some of this topically on top of the vellum, but then, sometimes it's better to have just a clean surface to stamp something on rather than having like these other types of inks where when you stamp something out on top of it, like if it's like like a pigment ink, some of that ink is absorbing into it, so sometimes you get a little bit of an uneven impression. Okay, so I'm just going to make some of these trunks here a little bit thinner. Like this, okay? Like that. And then we'll make it a little bit more, a lighter value as well. Now, I don't think I'm going to get to the end and think, oh man, I wish those trunks were darker, because if I want that, then I can just darken it on front of it, the vellum too, where it's overlapping it, so not really a big deal. So anyway, white Brilliance ink right here, and we'll knock this. I think if I put anything right here, I think it's probably going to be right in here anyway. Let's see, let's do that to this whole cluster of leaves as well. Okay, so see that where it's like, I don't know, it's probably like a 50% gray, 40%, or no, something like that, taken from, I don't know, started out like 95% gray. I mean, that looks really dark to me, but sometimes when I put something up even darker next to it, it's like, oh, that wasn't so dark, Let's do this too. Let's have this coming down. Let's have some of this light coming down here too, onto this grassy area. Like that, okay? You might be thinking, okay, well, if you're going to lighten it up like that, on the grass, then why didn't you just leave it lighter? You know, just don't take it so dark to begin with the dye-based inks. And it's because I can't plan that far in advance. It has a little bit of a different texturing too, you know, with that actual mist there. So, okay, so see this right here? So I see I'm still smudging some of these areas, but I'll just lay down some colored pencil work and I'll just blend these types of things in there. Okay, so with this right here, oh, okay, see right here, I can't put the animal right in here because I had these trees. I forgot about that, so let's do this. This tree right here has to be quite a bit lighter as well if we're going to put something in front of it. So let's do this. About like that. Okay. Linda, you have a bunch of birch trees. Okay. Just cut down. Really? I didn't know the birch trees were up that way. I never realized how many different kinds of birch there are. Huh. There really are. There's so many different versions of all kinds of trees, huh? Okay, so go get a drink. Go to the bathroom. Do whatever. It'll just take me, I don't know, it'll take me like 2 minutes to go and spray seal this. Or not spray seal it, but spray adhesive it. And I'll bring this back in. We'll lay this down. And then we'll try to get as flush of a connection with this as we can. So, all right. And like I said before, if you just joined in, I think I've sprayed the vellum before and then applied it. But when I spray this one, though, with all that adhesive in the back, this one really starts to curl. So the more firm the surface, I think that one's the one to use the sealant on. Because, you know, if I get a bunch of it on this one, it's not going to influence this paper isn't going to start curling on me like the vellum would, because it's just so thin. Okay. All right, so give me a couple minutes. And I'll go and spray this one off, and I'll be right back. I'm back. One of the couple things that's weird about working with vellum is it's, you know, you normally spray adhesive, you know, the back of a card to adhere it, you know, when you're doing matting or something like that. And, you know, you use the acrylic sealant on the front of it. So it seems strange putting adhesive on the front of your stamp piece, you know, just gluing the front of it. Okay, this is how I'm going to do this one right here. I'm going to go on the top like this. And just to get it lined up like that, okay. And I'm just lightly adhering it. And then I'm going to try to work from the inside out. Let's see, let's do it like this. I felt a bubble right down here, or wanted to. Okay, so the sides right here are not adhered down. So move it over a little bit and work from the inside out as much as possible. All right, that is, I think it's adhered pretty, there's a bubble right there. I don't know, you can't see it, but that's sticking up right there. I don't feel any interior bubbles here. Yeah, I think we got it adhered pretty well. I don't see anything. I was expecting to get that, but I don't know. Luckily, it didn't happen. I'm not complaining. All right, so that's your kind of your bond right there. Now, this is the part where, that I really like, which is like what I like doing with everything. It's like adding in all those little details and things like that, and the layering, and it's probably even more fun on this type of surface right here because you have so much depth in there. And also adding in some of these other layers in here. Sometimes when you're working with like wet media and you're applying it over the top of, other water solubles or anything like that, it could smear things out but I can't do anything to these red trees in here or the yellow ones, the branches and things like that, because they're on the back of the, they're underneath this vellum, so I don't have to worry about all that. All right. And this isn't, I don't know, this was kind of a sloppy process right here too, but it's because of how large it is. I'm handling this big old gigantic thing, so when you're working with smaller things like that, it's a lot easier to handle. All right, so some green tone colored pencils right here. Let's get some brown ones maybe as well. I really like coloring on Vellum too. It has this real kind of, I don't know, it's like a buttery texture to it. So it's actually pretty nice. It's a pretty nice surface to work with colored pencils. And then we'll add in some additional, there are usual things with the acrylic paint pens. Something like this color scheme maybe. I always like the birch trees in someone's yard in the neighborhood. Oh, yeah, the birch trees in someone's neighborhood, especially like seasonally, huh? That would be really, really nice. Out there where the Hodgkins are, those birch trees. Is that the type of trees that were all over the place in there? What was the main tree? What are the main trees that are the MAIN trees in Maine that were just in all those colors? Are those mainly birch trees? I like driving just around there, checking all those things out when I was there. I talk about Maine like in every, I don't know, it seems like 50% of my videos. Yeah, just driving around like back and forth to the store. There was really amazing. That one time, especially when I was there, when everything was in full color. All right, so let's see. We have a lot of areas that we can add. Let's just go with the greens. I guess that was what I was doing last. I have some of these lighter tones. I don't think I really need those. Let's just go in with the medium and darker tones. Okay, so let's do something right here. One of the things that'll potentially add a lot of drama to these pieces in this scenario is if I kind of pick some kind of lighting scheme. Let's just say the light is going to be coming from right there, and it looks like it already because I added that white pigment ink right in here. And it just makes sense. You just kind of make the perimeter a little bit darker, and it'll kind of enclose it a little bit more. But okay, so what I'm getting at right here is I'll create these shadows on these trees being influenced by the lighting, say, coming from right here. Okay, so if this was like a flat cement, ground or something like that, then the lines would be like just straight, okay? And you create these hard shadows going like that. But with these changes of terrain where it's supposed to be like undulating grassy forms or something like that, just in general, kind of I'll go like something like this. Let's make our point of whatever light right here. So my shadows for like this trunk right here would be coming out at this angle like this. Okay. But what I might do is instead of like a straight line like that, I might have the shadow kind of going like this, like these little bit of arcs like that. So you can go like this and just kind of arc it a little bit. And maybe it starts going straight, with this area right in here. Or just, I don't know, you can just kind of vary it a little bit, but you kind of just generally keep everything nice and consistent in terms of that light source. This piece is so big. Let's see. This is a little bit of a large thing right here, but I don't know. This would probably be a good idea for me to do. I usually just eyeball it, but let's just do this right here. Okay, this is this big kind of ripple right here. It's not an air bubble, but it's like this ripple. So you just kind of press that down, especially before the adhesive is completely dry, and you should be fine. Okay, so now that I'm thinking about it, those things do appear sometimes when doing this. All right. And it's where you just didn't adhere it. I don't know, if you have like a rubber brayer too, if you use something like that on there, you probably won't get that. But you can see these shadows, the angles become a lot more, dramatic, the higher up on the composition you go. So you see it's going like, the shadows are more like this, straight down it'll be vertical, but they're all kind of coming from that point of light. Now see, this tree right back here is behind this one, so you really can't tell, but just kind of estimate it like that. That, and then there's all these trees right in here. All right, so the most important ones are the ones right down in here. I guess that one would be kind of an important one right there too. I mean, you don't have to do it for every tree, and I won't, but I just want to get my angles down reasonably well. Now see, if I'm going to put like some animal or some kind of little subject matter right here, then I don't want to darken this in too much because I want them to stand out a little bit more, so I don't think I'm going to put any shadow work in there. Now, if I'm not going to, then I'll put some shadows down here. But let's do this on this side. Now this right here, there's almost not room for a directional shadow because it's probably just going to be just darker in general. But let's do this one right here. Let's have this tree right here. Casting that shadow over this. Okay, I feel another ripple right here. I'm starting to feel the, air bubbles and ripples here. I think maybe as it dries or something like that, it's changing the, maybe the dimensions or something like that of the surfaces or something like that. Maybe there's some expansion and contraction taking place. I probably wouldn't heat set either. I probably wouldn't recommend heat setting. I think that might, I don't know. It would probably create an extra like air bubble in between things, okay? Yeah, there's some air bubbles starting to happen, like post whatever, post merger. All right, so there we have it, like that. Okay, let me see. Now I still got a bubble right here. Let's burnish this right here. Okay, I think that did it. Feeling for testing for okay, let's add in the shadows. I'll just start it really light like this. There's going to be other layers over the top of this, so I'm not being really careful, whatever, anal about that. Placement. Okay. I just want to get the gist of this down because I'm going to add in some extra shadow in here too, just from the form of the whatever the forest floor too. So it's not just going to be the trees casting their shadow, kind of defining the form of the ground in here. So yeah, this vellum too is really great. The colored pencils work better on this vellum because the vellum has a little bit of texturing to it than like semi-gloss cardstock. Okay, these ones, there's a couple areas in here that seem to want to keep springing up, so just kind of press them down. What you might want to do too is after you spray slowly, I don't know, you just lay something nice and flat down on here and just let it sit for a few minutes. Okay, let's see. We can't do that though on a live stream though, unless we have like an intermission. All right. White birch scattering among spruce, fir, oak, beech. Are you kidding me? That's like all those trees are in that ecosystem, like around your place. That's amazing. I've mentioned it a gazillion times. I had that Acadia all to myself. It's because all of that amazing, those amazing colors, that's in like everyone's like, I don't know, like backyard there. You don't have to go to like the national park. Those colors are what people call like their front and backyard. All right, so let's see. Let's get some of this tone laid down in here. So roughly what I'm looking for is I'm looking for those textures right in here that were stamped out with the sedge filler, and I'm just going in and accentuating them a little bit more, making them a little bit darker with this. And at the base of trees too, I mean, we have the shadow being cast, but I like to add in a little bit more shading like this. I mean, there would be like all kinds of like darker areas because we have this big canopy of leaves up top and it's blocking, you know, the areas of the sun or things like that. But that's where you kind of just take your, whatever, your artistic license, you know, if you want a little bit more definition between some of these, then you don't darken it in. Like this whole area in here is probably like completely dark, but you know, it's just a little bit more dramatic with, you know, some additional shadows in here. So, you know, kind of by reference, you know, whatever, maybe some general, whatever, lighting properties or something like that. But then, you know, you just kind of take it in whatever direction you think would serve your scene the best. which might not have anything to do. It's more like a stage or something like that. Stage production, as I always mention, which is what my instructor told us. You know, don't see your artwork as like, you know, having to adhere to certain types of whatever real world scenarios. Okay, let's think about it more like a stage, and you're staging your pieces, and it's like a world unto itself. All right, this like here, darkening a little bit on the perimeter like this. By the way, my Vellum too isn't flush with the sides like that. There's a little bit of a, like an 1/8 of an inch over here where the Vellum isn't reaching the edge. So what I'll do is I'll trim this off probably. It looks like I don't know, it looks like I did pretty good on the top and bottom though. A lot of times when you do this type of thing too, sometimes when you do it like over here, if you go from left to right and adhere from over here to over here and everything's lined up right here, by the time you get to the other side, it's like off like an 1/8 of an inch or something like that. So that's why I went from center out like this on a larger piece like this. Smaller pieces, you know, you don't have to worry about that. You know, because even if you're off, by the time you get, you know, 4 inches away or 5 or something like that, it's, you know, it's not going to be off by that much. Okay, so just kind of blending in like this as we go a little bit. And let's go to a darker green now. So the darker green, or is this the darker green? The other green might have been darker. Different green right here. We'll just add, hopefully, to the richness, I guess, of the green tones here. Speaking of that, let me see here. Let's get down into some of these ochre, you know, yellow tones like this and bring some more tone and richness down here, I think. Too yellowy. Let's see, let's use this one right here. Maybe that's a little bit better. I don't know, can you see that right there? It's a lot richer, huh? Look at that, looks downright anemic now. Right over here. Without this, huh? Let's add this in. We won't leave the trunks just white too. We'll add some shading to it. Maybe I should make this into a 2-part vid. This is really big. That yellow is really adding some richness to this, isn't it? It's kind of waking up that green a little bit. Okay, let's do something here too. Here's a little bit of a ripple right here. That thing keeps springing up. It's bothering me. Hopefully I got it that time. All right, so there's that warmth there. That's starting to happen there, I think. Like that. Adding that down there like that, I think we can possibly benefit from some of that up top here in the canopy too, maybe? Let me see like this. Is that richer than over here? I was real conservative though. Let me see, let me add a little bit more. that. Something like that. Let's go with that lime green. I wasn't going to use that lime green because I thought it was just going to be too light, but I think it can add in, after that yellow, I think it'll add in the richness to it and the warmth in some of these areas. And as my professor used to, or said once, he said a lot of times the brightest colors are in the shadows. Meaning the richest, the most intense colors are in the shadows because they're not being washed out, you know, by like high noon sun or something like that. I'll be adding in a little bit of foreground into this too, by the way. Okay, let's see. Yeah, we're all coming to everyone. One of the perks of this live stream tonight is everyone in this live stream has been invited to the Hodgkins during the fall for a stamping retreat. And they're hosting at their house. So everyone needs to drop them like their, if you have any like food allergies or anything like that. So get that ready there. We're coming. If you have like a shellfish allergy, let them know. Because of, you know, the lobster. All right, so there's those shadows coming along like that. And I still need a little bit more. I should have put some other rocks out here, you know, to integrate this little pathway a little bit more, or a lot more. But I didn't. Oh well. All right, here's black. Okay. I'm using my... Oh, maybe I should use the... Oh, let me see. Here's brown, actually, before I go to that black. So I'm adding this brown at the base of the tree, and then I'm going out into the shadow for a certain distance. Okay, I'm not going all the way down, though. I mean, we could if you wanted to make it like super dramatic and, you know, where these shadows are of a universal value, really dark, you know. But I want it to kind of taper off, kind of lightly like that. I think this one color right here, I'm able to use it on the vellum where I don't think I'd be able to use it over the top of all these colors that have been already laid down here on my semi-gloss cardstock, you know, because this, again, this vellum has just so much more texture, tooth to it. Than the smooth, you know, relatively smooth semi-gloss. little bit, but like I said, this might be a two-parter to finish this off. It looks relatively dimensional, or starting to look a little bit dimensional. Black, again, black colored pencil. These stamps are, and this piece is so large, I didn't realize I stamped the birch trees on my cutting mat. All right, let me just get some preliminary coloring on these trunks here. And like I said, I think we'll finish this off on, I don't know, a future vid or live stream. But I just want to get a couple of these trees down. I'll show you kind of what I do with these trees. So if the lighting is coming from the interior right in here, that's the only plans that matter to us though, Bonnie, right? Bonnie, we are invading Maine. Bonnie, we have stampers' rights. All right, so on the side of the tree, I don't know if I should use brown, but on the side of the tree, opposite side of the tree, from the light, you add in your shadow work. Okay. Now I'm gonna make it look, I don't know, I'll pick a couple colors that are different than this, okay? Like that. I did it real lightly because I haven't really picked out a color scheme that I want to use on there. Maybe some actually blue, believe it or not, okay? Like, we'll add that in there like so. That, okay. So I'm toning the side of this birch tree with shadow. I'll add some more in there too. Okay, but what's really fun to do too is if you go in with your paint pen and on the side of that birch tree facing the light, you just kind of, you go on the interior like this, okay? And don't go up the whole thing, otherwise it's kind of like awkward. You don't want to have this like white line right in here. But, okay, so right in here, and I don't want to lose like my different birch textures too, but so I'm just kind of like going in here like this. And I'm not doing that like lineless coloring or something like that. I mean, you could go all the way up to the edge, but see, on the side of that birch, facing the light, it's the line, the line weight is lighter than on the darker side. Okay, now I'll really push this even more with like a darker shadow on this side, but I don't know if you can see it here, but so see all of these trees in here, I guess I can do it on a few of them. So like, okay, now this one here in the background too, we have all that green going through there, right? So you can just kind of go in here like this and add this in here. I'm not going to do it all, but see, I'll add in the shadow work on this side. You can see where all of that green is showing right through this one. But that shadow work will cover that up. So it made it, doing like this, it made it so that I didn't have to do certain types of fussier types of applications in here, because you can just go in and add it as an additive later on. I don't know if that makes sense. But you didn't have to, I didn't have to do a bunch of masking off and stuff like that. See, I'm reclaiming the side of that tree like this just after the fact, okay? And I didn't have to be worried about certain types of coloring issues, that we would normally have to, think about here with these trees like that. Okay. And like I said, so on the other side, so that's kind of coming in. I need to shade it a little bit more now too. Go over the white, then bring back a little bit black back into it like that. But see this right in here? You're just going to go on the side like this. Yeah, it doesn't have to be the whole length of the birch tree either, but light on the light sides of it. So the trees to the left, I mean, you've seen me do this a million times before, but on these birch trees, it really kind of stands out. So the light is coming from right here, illuminating the left sides of these trees, okay, trunks. I'm flipping this over because I just have easier access right here. And then the light is coming from right here on this one, so I'll illuminate a little bit, or a lot of the right side of these trunks right here. Okay, so and again, it's kind of adjusting the line weight, so it's like when you're doing something like this too, it's like calligraphy or something like that, where they have variations in line weight. It kind of adds to the the whole gesture and grace of things like calligraphy. I'm not saying that this is like super graceful, like I'm comparing myself to, someone with the abilities of a calligrapher, which I don't at all. But it kind of gives it that spirit of that. So let's see if you can show, and just doing this here, I can get this whole forest like really quickly here. And we can see it even without the shading in here. You do it on the trees in the background too, like that. All right, so I don't know if you can tell the difference in here from having that. See, it's all these trees. It's subtle. I mean, if you gave this to someone, they're not going to know you did that. But I think it really kind of, plays a nice part. See, look at this. I even got rid of that whole edge outline there. When you get rid of outlines. See, outlines tend to flatten things out. Now, I needed the outline in here because we need to see where the birch is. But if you can kind of alter it like this, it really kind of takes on a little bit more of that three-dimensional look to it. Yeah, it looks so much better. I'm getting bolder with it. I haven't done this, like I said, for a long time, so I kind of forgot how much I actually do on here, or can do. Yeah, there we go. I'm probably missing some. It's like, there's up there, but you don't have to do it, like I said, on every area, but I guess we can. See, this is like really fun right here, doing this type of thing. It's like, oh, yeah, that looks so much nicer. But a little bit more dimensional like that, with the trees. So you can see the line weight, it's like heavier on the outside edges like that. And then we'll add in the shadows to them too, which is the other completely, other 50% of that lighting in there. We'll add some lighting down here, probably some kind of subject. I need to figure out what I'm going to put in here, if anything, like a little figure. I thought about that, that form of that, Moonlight Dreamers imagery. There's like a little figure, kind of, she's This old engraving that should go right in here. Now that I think of it, I should stamp her out and use her as a cutout and put her right in here. But I think that would be really good. But we'll enhance some additional shadow work in here, shading, and then I'll add in some darker foreground imagery with the heavier, darker leaves right in here. And that should kind of make those ones seem a little bit more shimmery. And then we'll add in some additional three-dimensional kind of seemingly a little bit more 3D looking foliage in here with the acrylic paint pens. Look at that. That's like really kind of giving that a little bit more of a three-dimensional shimmery type of leaf look. And that's really important to me too. It's like you know, when there's like leaves, like lighting coming through leaves, it really looks like I don't know, like walking through like a living stained glass or something like that with that backlit light like that. And I think that'll be pretty good in there. So just even just a few little dots with that, with like one of these pens, I think, you know, kind of brings it up. But that's our, that's the start right here on this scene. We had so much layering in there with those birch trees. It's like, okay, let's just push this and try to make it go all the way. But it's going to take me a couple. It'll take me a couple sessions to do this, and I want to think about some of the colors on those birch trees too, on the shadow portion of it too. So, yeah, you know, we'll blend this in a little bit more, and then some of these other types of foliage coming in. I'll have some other foliage coming in here, like right in here, probably in black, and that'll blend that in a lot more. It just looks like it's just sitting there too. Oh, and let's see, while we're doing that, let me use my stays on here. I completely forgot about the tiny rocks. Small. This totally needs it in here. I'm doing it in the stays on because I'm going over so much wax, colored pencil wax, you know, work. And it's really, that colored pencil is laid down pretty thick on top of this vellum. Okay, so we need that kind of extra texturing in there. I need to pick up some other colors of stays on at some point in time too. So I want to get some green or something like that, and brown if they have it. I don't even know if they have brown, but we need some other colors of stays on too, and other colors of brilliance too. Brilliance inks up here with some additional impressions over the top of that would look pretty cool. If that would work, I don't know. I don't know how opaque the brilliance would be, but I think it would be decent enough to use it. A stampathon and gather leaves. Get that fire. Get that. We'll get that organized there. Yeah, tree tour too. Yeah. When is fall? Like, is that like peak color? That's like at the end of August, early September, right? It's probably a little bit of different times every year too, right? Depending on how the seasons are going. Yeah. So Harold needs to know everyone's dietary preferences, and ask him if you want the if you're having the the lobster or the beef dish, or chicken or whatever. He doesn't allow vegetarians, he said. All right, so foundation for this really big piece. Again, if you just kind of joined, this is 7 inches by 14. I'm not going to make it through the whole thing unless we're here for like a 4-hour live stream or something like that. So I want to pick out some additional things to go in here. And then I think the first thing that I'll do is I'll address the trees in here. Maybe, you know, if I do another live stream or something like that, I'll get like a bunch of them done because it's going to be a bunch of the same thing here. Just kind of toning in the darker sides of these tree trunks in here. I want to get a little bit of color in there. I don't want them just white like that. I want them to be a little bit of a richer tone. And then I want that figure in here. And then I want to decide too, it might be pretty dramatic because we're already featuring this type of scenario using the vellum with all this layers of depth in here. But I think it might be cool to have like those crepuscular rays coming through here. Actually, that might be perfect. Or at least a few of them, like maybe 3 at least. But we have the shadows down here. But then if we have these crepuscular rays coming out of here and just kind of, I love weaving light, like putting the light beam in front of like that tree and in back of this one, in front of another one, you know? So it's like weaving through this little forest in here. I think it can be really dramatic, but also tie all of this together. You know what I mean? It's busy in here, but that lighting like that can, you know what I mean? It's just, and it would be going against all these verticals too. I think we have to do it now. Yeah, I think that would look really good too. And then plus, if I do that little cutout figure in here too, I can put this shadow right in here from these trees right in here and just put her right over the top of it like that, right at the top of those stairs like that. Yeah. Or she could do that one where she's just kind of like sitting up against that tree like that, you know. And I think that would be cool too. Yeah, I think it's I think it's nature set number, is it 26 or 30? I can't remember, but I think that would be good. Dandelions and lobster. All right. The start of this big scene. All right, folks. Hope to see you on the next live. And hope to get this scene done here. I look forward to it. I think all those little types of touches from here on will be really fun. So I should put a list of the things that I need to do on here. Paint pen work in here, and figure, shadow work, and I think we'll be done. All right, folks, have a great rest of evening.